Podsmashers of the internet, and welcome to another episode of
Podsmash,
Where Gaming Goes to Grab a Beer. Tink.
beer to go, one might say.
Ooh, this is where we can get a beer to go. Perfect. Hit up your local brewery and go get something curbside.
Wait, I got a sweet sound for us.
Door.
You ready?
Yeah. Do it. Ooh, I should have done the same thing. I have a can. We are Where Gaming Goes to Grab a Beer. We are a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas that you care about with video games.
That's right. We're your hosts, Penguin and Termite. I'm Penguin.
I am Termite, and tonight we are going to be talking about
The name of the game, aka video game titles. And that's the literal title, not like, the other way titles are used. Just what games are named and the methodology of naming them and the good and the bad and the ugly of the names.
Yeah, sounds like it's going to be a fun idea to talk about tonight.
Yeah,
I am drinking. Oh, go ahead. We're still what?
We are still social distancing, so we are recording on a remote platform, essentially, using our crappier USB mics instead of our nice, slick interface. So again,
I kind of am using the interface and a microphone.
I knew you were going to, so you're making me sound like the bad robot one.
Not really. This is a test mic that I could never use in person with you, thanks to a generous coworker who wanted to try a different type of microphone. This is called a condenser mic instead of a direct mic, which we use together. And we could never do it together in person because this mic would pick you up so much that it'd be very difficult and we'd sound so different it wouldn't make any sense. This kind of has the mask of the platform doing some behind-the-scenes editing for us, so there might be a slight difference in audio, but I want to know what it's like for testing purposes to see if we can actually get two of these bad boys in a room.
Yeah, well, either way, we're remote, so if the audio quality sounds different from our previous episodes, then that's fine.
Yep. Yeah, the audio will be compressed and sent from a server. That's what lines us up. That's what keeps us in check. So we're not able to do the same granular editing for quality that we're normally able to do. If you want, go back to our bonus episode. It was recorded exactly the same way, and I think that sounded fine. So we're good.
Well, cool. Then maybe people will be like, I like it better on Zencaster.
Who knows?
Anyways.
But I like it better in person.
So I agree. But I don't want you breathing on me with your coronavirus.
Right.
Anyways, so
speaking of that and social distancing and coronavirus, yeah, I don't have it. I was going to ask you this earlier, but I decided to wait till we were on the air. We're not generally a political podcast. We don't have a lot of political bend, or that's not really our angle. But when it comes up, it comes up. Is it just me, or is it the fact that I am adhering to social distancing has a political charge? Is it a generational thing or what? Because there are people that are telling us that we're overdoing it, that we're freaking out, that it's panicking. I'm like, no, I just don't want to kill someone by being out. Sorry, I don't understand how this is a political statement to listen to the CDC. But are you experiencing the same kind of pressure or blowback from anyone?
I'm not. Most of the people that I interact with have been very supportive of it. You know what I mean? There have been a few people who in the earlier stages were like, it's just the flu, don't panic, everything's going to be fine. But most of those people have turned around. I do see more politicization happening down the road, though, because the president wants to open the country back up by Easter, and the health experts are like, no, don't do that. That's a bad idea, and people are going to die. So depending on... again,
that
without getting
I can
too
understand
political.
being politically charged like that, right? Do you agree with the president? Do you not? And why?
Exactly.
I'm talking about personally. I almost feel like there's this pressure that maybe I can go see folks. So, I'm a little crazy for not. And I don't believe that. And you alluded to how you're doing your social distancing and how you were staying at home and, talking about that. I'm like, yeah, that's what we're all supposed to be doing this. There's posts on Facebook of people playing basketball in the park and there's 20 dudes hanging out, right? I run by Costco and there's 70 people outside. I'm like, what is going on? Why are people not why am I doing this and going through all this work and like not going shopping fluently or flippantly whenever I want something, and actually like sacrificing my normal life to stay home when no one else really seems to care. It's really frustrating.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just looking into it. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the problem.
I don't think so. I think it's smart to go ahead and follow the guidelines. And I've been talking for a while now. I said when this whole thing started, when it was still contained to China, I said I would rather we have a society and we have governmental structures in place that are overly cautious than the opposite. Because the opposite is the Black Plague. The opposite is when there was no knowledge and no understanding of this at all, so people just lived their lives, and a third of Europe's population died. So I would rather, when it comes to pandemics, when it comes to things like this, like, I'm not typically a hypochondriac, but I let out my inner germaphobe when this kind of thing happens. It's like, I would rather people be overly cautious. So I would be, if it's political to say this, I would be the person who'd be like, no, you people who are saying that we're overreacting, you are dumb and are going to cause people to die. So
right, that's the point I'm trying to make, and I can't seem to get it through people's head. They want to come see me and the kids. I'm like, no. Stay home. Well, you are not coming here. You're not allowed in my house.
On the other hand, though, I would say follow the guidelines, and the guidelines say that gatherings under 10 people are probably fine. You and I probably could record in person because those are the guidelines set forth. Wash your hands. True. If you're really worried about it, wear masks or whatever, but those also should be saved for people who are infected. But
if I had any masks, I would go donate them to a hospital right now.
Yeah, so you can.
They need them more than I do.
Right, you can still get together with people, and you should be getting together with people in small groups. So if your parents, as long as they're not sick and showing symptoms, in fact, they're more in danger than your kids are with this thing.
Right.
So, but if people are like, well, we should get together and have a cookout of 15 people, that's when you say, no, we shouldn't do that. And if they push back then I'm like, okay, yeah, no, they're in the wrong. But if it's just a couple of people getting together and having dinner, that's, according to the guidelines set forward to us, that's fine.
Right. But it sounds like you and I wouldn't even do that. I know I wouldn't. I wouldn't have anybody over. I don't want anyone here.
I would have people over.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Then I guess maybe it is me then.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what I'm saying. I'm following what the experts are telling me. And the experts are saying, small gatherings are okay, but big gatherings, not okay. So people playing basketball in the park, not okay. People getting together.
They're sweaty and falling on each other.
Yeah. People getting together and I don't know, kicking the ball in the backyard, though, for 2 or 3 people, that's fine. So, yeah.
All right.
Whatever.
There you go.
You were trying to say earlier what you were drinking. What are you drinking?
Oh, yeah, we're doing that now. I'm drinking Dogfish Head's Slightly Mighty. That's our regular 4%, 95 calorie
low
IPA
beer.
Yeah, it's yummy. It's left over. I had them a while ago.
I'm drinking something even lower carb.
Water.
Yeah. Couldn't get out of the house today to go pick up beer, and I don't know if I would have even I could have. So I don't have any other alcohol in the house. So yeah, I'm drinking water.
Sweet.
Not exciting. But anyways, we rambled for a while about coronavirus because we don't really have much news today. So
coronavirus is not my favorite thing, but doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Hopefully Zencastr will balance that out.
Harder.
Yep. We'll see what happens.
It'll be way out of sync, and that's fine.
Yeah,
it'll
sound funny. The fire garbage truck just keeps on rolling. That is 80-bit Podsmash.
Oh yeah, fire garbage truck on
fire. That's what I meant to say. But hey, naming, right?
Yeah, sounds like something on Twisted Metal.
Yeah,
it sounds like something you drive. Yeah. Anyways, so favorite things, which we awkwardly introduced, is a segment of our show where we just like to update you on the thing that we've discovered that we're excited about this week. It may be something that we didn't just discover, but have in the past. We're rediscovering, whatever. Favorite thing, it's the thing that we are hoping that you will find is your next favorite thing.
Yeah, it could be deep, meaningful, or silly and shallow, but, whatever you want. What do you got? What's your favorite thing?
My favorite thing is, I gotta say, it's Doom Eternal. I've been playing it
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's hard
so good.
under quarantine or social distancing, whatever. It's hard to, like, I want to pick something that's not a video game, but quite frankly, like, watching TV and playing video games are, like, most, other than taking care of, you know, my responsibilities and family stuff, most of what I'm doing is just doing that. But
yeah,
so all guilt aside, Doom is a blast. It's so much fun. I'm having a blast with it. So it's like said on Facebook, I was like, it's like the combat is like dancing, except with chainsaws and flamethrowers.
And I still haven't figured it out. I'm always out of something. I can't use what I need. And it's interesting because there's challenges in each level, and it's like you need to shoot the turrets off of the spider bots 3 times, right? So it requires shotgun ammo. But I'm always out of shotgun ammo all the time. So I'm like constantly remembering in my head what button does the thing that gets me ammo, because one button does the thing that gets you armor, and then timing your glory kills gets you health. So like there's this weird, I haven't figured it out yet, and I feel like I'm fumbling all the time. Like I die, I use up my extra lives, and I'm playing on the easiest difficulty, which tells me I'm really doing something wrong. But I'm having a blast. Even though I'm not good, it's still amazing.
Yeah, I've heard some people complain that it's overly complicated, that it's too much, just too much busyness in the combat. And I can see how that's the case, because it was pretty overwhelming for the first few hours, maybe. But once it's remarkably simple at the end of the day, and I can't, people complain again. I've seen some complaints from some reviewers that are like, it's just too complicated. I'm like, how is it any more complicated than like any RPG? You know, like Borderlands has just as complicated combat when you think about it, you know, because you have to like switch weapons per element and then use your action skill, and that action skill triggers this, and you know what I mean? Like, it's just as complicated. So once you understand the complexity and have the muscle memory, it's fine. And that's what I found with the game. It was a little overwhelming at first, but I love how it forces you to try different, like use different guns constantly, because you don't have enough ammo. You only have a few shotgun shots, because like typically in games like that, I find the gun that works best for me, and then I just use it for everything, maybe switching it up if I find myself in a circumstance. But this game, it's like, nope, you're using the plasma rifle now because you're out of ammo with everything else. And you better find something small to chainsaw, because you don't have enough chainsaw ammo to chainsaw something big and get ammo. It's just like, it's definitely but once it clicks, though, it's just like you run in, you flamethrower a bunch of people, then you pull out your rocket launcher, and then bam, your armor's at full, and then you can go in there, run in there with your shotgun, start blasting people, doing glory kills. Then you have to pop out because something big is attacking you, and so you drop down from the sky, slowing down time, knock off all of its stuff, flamethrower him because that's back up, and then launch a frost grenade, and then it's just like it's just wild to talk about and get you excited. Just like even saying the words is
the
like
mental check. Each gun, you can switch its mod by pressing up on the D-pad too. Yeah. And if you don't have the right one, like the shotgun I alluded to earlier, you can lob sticky bombs, or you press up and now it's a fully automatic shotgun. So knowing which gun you're using and what mode it's in while switching between your ice grenade versus your fire grenade, it hits left on the D-pad and an L1 to use, and you have all that juggling in your mind. It's like, I don't know, and I just stop. And I'm like, well, I'm dead. I have no idea, like, where am I? Can we just pause and like let me get myself set up and then go? But you can't. It's just in your face. But it's so fun. All of that is amazing.
It'll click too, and you'll find yourself in a circumstance like I did the other night, where it's just like, I'm amazing at this, but
God of War was the same way.
Easiest difficulty. But I had to drop it too. I usually play games like that on normal because I want to play it like what do they think the normal is, and the normal for Doom Eternal is way too hard. So I was like,
it must be, because the easy difficulty is only one notch lower. So you're playing on the same difficulty I am.
I am, and it's fun, but it's going from, I had been playing Borderlands like right before I fired up Doom for the first time, and even just the feel of the shooter mechanics is different enough that it's jarring. Like, there's no sprint, you're just always moving at the same speed unless you dash, but that's just a button where it kind of warps you forward. So like
right.
I'm used to that kind of like ramp up of speed, and then, but nevertheless, like it took an adjustment, but it feels, as I've been putting it, it feels more arcadey. It feels more like the old Doom games, just zipping around. Even the way the screen moves, it's great. And then, like you said, that mini game of resource management and weapon management, again, it feels more like an arcade game than a shooter. So it's so good.
It's a technical masterpiece. I mean, it's all 60 frames per second all the way around. They like adjust the resolution, they change the complexity of the graphics on the screen on the fly to keep that frame rate locked at 60 regardless of what platform you're on. And it just goes like, it has that arcadey, fast-paced feel. The enemies, like, pieces fall off as you shoot them, so it really feels like you're making progress. It's like this visceral, like you're pumping shotgun bullets into their shoulder and their shoulder flies off, or like you can gimp them with the glory kills, and it's just has this, animations are super smooth and very detailed. It's very well done. It's such a good game.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
I'm having a blast with it, so it's definitely my favorite thing. I'm staying up way too late every night playing Doom. I will say the levels are long. Like, granted, you get checkpoints.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
you get checkpoints throughout, so there are stopping points, but it's not a kind of game that's easy to want to stop. Like you're. And each mission, like when you come to the natural stopping points, feels like the end of a mission. When you hit that load screen, it's giving you all your, hey, you completed these challenges. That's when I'm like, okay, it's time to put the game down. Not, right after an intense combat encounter, and oh look, there's a couple of secrets right ahead, I want to discover them. Like, but sometimes you got to stop right in the middle, because the missions are just like, if you're trying to find all the secrets without using a guide, you're looking at like 2.5 hours per mission.
Is that what you've done?
What?
Not use a guide?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I'll go back
sorry, dude.
I'll go back and clean up anything that I missed, but
powerpicks.com, their trophy guide, has a link, and it's all in chronological order. It's text, so you don't have to watch the video. It's amazing.
I like the discovery.
And
I use PowerPicks for cleanup all the time. I'm like, okay, I need to find this. I used it for both Horizon Zero Dawn and Senua's Sacrifice that I just grabbed this month.
Yeah.
Cleaned up those. Like, I use PowerPicks' guide just to find all that stuff, because they also have videos online too for the collectibles if you want to like see how to get to it, because the description's not enough. So they're great. It's a great website. But I'm enjoying the discovery of Doom right now, and I can always clean up later. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, that's true. That's what's great about the trophy list. It's well done as well. Yep. It's well written. You can get, nothing's missable. I completely forgot my favorite thing. I had two lined up. One was Doom Eternal, and the other one was something that I know what it was. I picked up a copy of Final Fantasy II for Super Nintendo and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Hyperstone Heist for Sega Genesis from a local game shop, and I did not know how awesome Final Fantasy II, which is actually 4 in the grand scheme of numbering, but it's the Super Nintendo game in North America, so I'm going to refer to it as Final Fantasy II. I didn't realize how good the game starts off, and it's a 16-bit top-down, like sprites reading all the text, so you have very limited animation, you get no emotion expression whatsoever, and no tone through voice acting like we get in modern RPGs, but it starts off, and Kane, the main character, Cecil and Kane are the two main characters, but Cecil, you see an opening scene where they go into a village of apparently weak or unarmed villagers, and he has an army with him that holds them all hostage and steals a crystal from them. Internally, his struggle is this moral? I'm following the law of the command that has been given me to raid this village and steal this crystal, and I can see the fear and animosity that I have oppressing these folks to rip their possession from them. And so he has this internal struggle, and he questions the king, gets kicked out of the army, and told to go on the side mission to go deliver a package to a village. He gets there. The package opens up by itself and outpours firebombs that roast the entire village and burn it to the ground. He finds a little girl who's grieving over the death of her mom, which was the main character's previous mission to kill a dragon, was actually her mom. And so now he has the death of this girl's mom, the death of everyone on the village, and the death of the crystal owner's village that he raided, all on his arm, like his heart, his mind. And he's like, morally questioning everything. He hates all of it. He's not happy. And I'm like, holy cow, I'm playing a Super Nintendo game made in 1992, and I am completely in this game. And that's just the first hour, what I just described. It's amazing. And I haven't played a retro game new to me like that, I don't think ever. Like, I am blown away. So that's my favorite thing. I'm like dying to get back to it. I don't even know how I'm going to have time to play it.
When you're quarantined and not visiting anyone.
But game time really hasn't like increased. I still play games the same. My wife has grad school, so my game time.
I know. I'm giving you a hard time.
Yeah, I wish I had more time, but I don't.
All right, let's favorite things, which leads us to our next segment, which is
DLC. Hot. Oh man.
Downloadable content is a segment of our show where we have a fun discussion you wouldn't normally have, usually about video games, and sometimes it's related to our topic, sometimes it's not. So today, this one inspired by our topic, we're talking about movie titles. We're talking about video game titles and how hard it can be sometimes to name games. So we want to do a little bit of that improv naming right now. And so over the course of this podcast, we've had many other DLCs or topics where we have talked about like dream video games, like, and it could be in an existing universe, like we've talked about what our dream Zelda game would look like or what our dream Mario game would look like. We've also had topics and we've had guests who we've had them help us design video games based on other characters from existing universes. And sometimes we've just completely come up with game ideas of our own. So we haven't named them all, though. And we're not going to name them all because, we'd have to go listen through all of our podcasts and write down every time. But we're going to try to, for this DLC, pull from the games we've talked about that don't have names, that are completely made up games. And we're going to try to name a few of them. So sound good?
Ooh, okay. All right.
So I don't know if you have any like memory of any right now. But
this is a good DLC because it will kind of touch on some of the things we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
But I do have I had a game. I don't have a name, but I have a game that I want to
talk about the name then. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking about when before Pokemon Sword and Shield come out or were announced or revealed or showed off, we wanted our own dream Pokemon game to be like Breath of the Wild. And so what would that be named?
So Pokemon has
World Safari. That's what I would call it.
World Safari.
Pokemon World Safari. So but then that defies all the naming conventions. So
Pokemon has interesting naming conventions because they have their mainline games, which all follow a pretty strict and rigid naming convention. But then they have all of their spin-off games, which, Pokemon Snap, Pokemon
Stadium,
Let's Go, even Pokemon Go,
Yep. Gosh. Coliseum, Stadium.
See, exactly. So in my world, though, I'm like, I kind of would I wanted that to replace Pokemon's mainline games. Like, I wanted that to be their mainline games. Like, they jump forward in the franchise. So I would want to go in the other direction of giving it like the mainline games, 2 different versions with different exclusives in each version, but the gameplay is entirely revolutionized. So if we were going with that naming scheme, let me think here. Like, I almost think...
Right, you want the name to express, like, how the game is. Like, Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I'm
is
almost thinking,
actually a really good name.
I think, because the whole point was open world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, Pokemon Sky and Pokemon Sea. Or Pokemon Sky and Pokemon Land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about Pokemon Epic and Pokemon Odyssey?
Ooh, I like that. But Odyssey's so overused.
It is. Mario Odyssey. Yeah, it's crossed off. Nope, can't use Odyssey. It's already done.
You can almost
Nintendo franchise.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Nintendo naming, subtitling 2 Odysseys would be...
it'd be weird.
A little redundant.
Sky and Sea is good. And the third one could be like Land.
Land, yeah.
The juxtaposition of it. It could be Galaxy or
Pokemon Pokemon. I'm like thinking of something that could go with Horizon. You know what I mean? Like Pokemon Horizon and Pokemon.
Horizon's overdone so much.
Is it done? You think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Horizon Zero Dawn, Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Yeah, good point. Gosh, yeah. Okay, yeah, because I was thinking too, like Pokemon World, but that's also overdone everything.
Right.
But okay, Sky and Sea. Then I think that'll work. Yeah,
it's not amazing.
Not amazing, but it
works.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, the game that I had is we talked a long time ago. I designed a dream game that doesn't exist in any franchise, and it was a game where I talked about how it would be awesome if like the entire concept of the game was like taking components that are different effects. So like, hey, I'm going to design, and you basically design weapons, and the whole like skill of the game comes from creatively designing these weapons and then using them. It could be PvE or PvP, it doesn't matter. The whole point is skill comes from creativity. And so it's about building weapons from individual components, and I don't think I gave it a name. So let's give it a name. And I'm thinking, my initial thoughts were something about armament, like something with the word armaments in it. Like, not arms, because arms is overdone too. Wild Arms, the game Arms, but the full armaments. Maybe just that, armaments. But
if you knew, if you had a story and you had some kind of vision about what the story is kind of doing, or like what the main character's arc will be based on, if it's like destiny, the character discovering his destiny, or maybe he doesn't know, or his fate, he'd be like armament fate, or destiny armament something. Or
I do hate nonsensical titles, and we'll get more into methodology as
you see my Japanese RPG bend, because that's totally like a normal Japanese RPG name.
Yeah, we'd have to like so I like a good
Eternal
title that
armaments.
gives you a sense as to what. So maybe
infinite armaments,
or
the possibilities
like
are endless.
Armaments of creation, because there you have a sense of both creating and the weapons themselves. Or you could even do like the arc of creation, where it feels like that. It's still good. I like the idea of creation being in there too.
No, that's dumb. Armament constructor. That sounds like a simulator game.
Yeah, almost. Yeah. We can mull over that one for a while, see if something comes to us. But we each had one. Pretty good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Cool. That's DLC then.
Meow.
All right, which leads us to our main topic, where we're talking about titles, and I like to call this podcast, you probably will see it in the title of this podcast, the name of the game.
Game titles.
Okay, so we're not gonna, everyone knows what a title is. It's what a game is named, right? Marketing title. I'm sure there's all kinds of things that go into it with copyright and stuff like that too. But yeah, it's an important part of a game franchise is its name, because it's what everyone's going to call it and talk about.
And for 90% of the video game discussion, it's the first impression.
Yeah.
Whether it's a teaser trailer at a trade show, or if it's your first time walking into a store and you see it on the shelf and you never heard of it, you're going to know the name before anything else.
Yep.
Sometimes the trailers are like
it, and that name could make, like, the name of the game could make the difference between, oh, I'm intrigued by that, versus okay, whatever, it sounds like every other generic name game of all time, despite the fact that the game might be wildly different from whatever you're imagining. And I'll hit on this later. There's going to be lots of game franchises that we love but have terrible names.
Yep.
So we'll or names that are just problematic for one reason or another. But
speaking of teaser trailers or announcements, examples of what we're talking about. Two games I want to talk about. One was at the Game Awards. They showed a ton of stuff first and then announced the game title, and then I was interested. And that was Ghostwire Tokyo. You remember that?
Yeah.
And then another one was they showed a bunch of stuff and then they showed it off, and I was disinterested by the title, and that was Elden Ring, which is the next Souls game. So I just thought those were two things that I was thinking of when we were talking about first impressions. Ghostwire Tokyo sounds fun. Like, ooh, that's
also
techno.
Gives you a sense of something supernatural. It firmly sets it in
Mm-hmm.
in a setting, whereas Elden Ring could.
What
is it? Like a Lord of the Rings thing? Like, are there magic?
Yeah.
Are we dealing with magic rings? Is a ring could also be used to like refer to a circle of like a secret society or something? Elden
is
what
Elden
that?
Old?
Yeah,
Like
is
elder? Like what?
or is that
Yeah.
something specific to that universe? So okay, that
Go ahead.
segues us
Sorry.
nicely into our first question. Then is what makes a title good or bad? This is of course subjective. This entire episode for the most part is going to be our opinions on these things, but I think there's a general, it's still an important thing. People wouldn't spend so much time mulling over titles if, I'm sure a large segment of your population thinking that a title is a bad thing. So therefore there's still some merit in the subjectivity. So yeah, let's talk about that methodology. What makes a title good or bad? What are some good things for titles to avoid? And what should a title kind of do for a game?
There's so much wrapped up in a game title. Like, you want to intrigue interest. You want to pique interest. You want to be intriguing, sorry. And you also want to articulate what your game is. You can almost go so far as to, I want to convey the genre of game it's going to be and the feel of the game before you see anything. You're just like, there's so much pressure on the name. What is Jack 2? I'm looking at my shelf. Like, you just see Jack 2 on the shelf.
Right.
If you just see that, it's kind of a bad name because you don't know what it is.
I think
it's actually a sequel to a game called Jak and Daxter. And you're like, oh, okay, well, what's Jak and Daxter? 2 names. Oh, that could be anything. It's kind of ambiguous.
Yeah.
Another bad title. Or is it?
Yeah.
That's kind of the subjective nature. Maybe I put too much pressure on it, but
no, you're more or less thinking along the same lines that I am, where like if I'm thinking about what makes a good title, I think the primary question that I would ask is, if 2 people are talking about games and someone mentions, oh, have you played X? The person who is hearing it, who's never heard of X, should immediately be interested and have a sense as to what kind of game it is. So it, like you said, it needs to be both intriguing and minorly informative. So we'll get into examples later, but I told you one of my pet peeves is nonsensical titles that are just words that at the end of the day may or may not have anything to do with the game itself. I also, I'm beginning to be burned out by single word titles like Destiny or
Fallout.
Yeah, well, yeah, Fallout's not that bad because again, at least it gives you a sense of the vibe of the game being nuclear. Like, so I don't mind Fallout so much. I'm trying to think of another game that is just a single word.
Doom.
Yeah, Doom. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Doom is
Halo.
just like, what? Okay, so you do get a sense of dread, but Doom isn't really a horror. At least it is no longer a horror game. So
right. Well, now there's no single named. Only the first entry was.
Right.
And it was perfect for that. I think it's a good name.
Well, but even Doom 2, all you know,
all
the
sequel
two
to the first one.
Yeah, is that it's the sequel. Exactly. But
which isn't the best title, but they have that subtitle. You corrected me, and now I know it's Hell on Earth.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world because there is actually in my good list, I have a couple single word titles actually. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but I'm starting to get a little bit burned out on them. Destiny is the one that bugs me the most. I'm like,
yeah,
how is your game about Destiny? And how is Destiny supposed to convey, shared world loot shoot from the makers of Halo, sci-fi, a little bit of magic? You know what I mean? Like, Destiny doesn't just portray that at all. Bugs me. So
you can almost pick apart any video game's title.
You could.
Some aspects are good and some don't make sense.
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult to nail the perfect title.
Yeah. Titles that refer to something in the plot that will be revealed later aren't bad, but can be a little annoying. I have an example of that later that I'll talk about. But yeah, that's one thing that I've a pattern I've noticed where it's like this is in normal circumstances would be a nonsensical title, but when you play through it, you're like, oh, it's referencing that. I think that should be avoided to some degree, but it is something I've noticed pretty consistently with that as well.
It's a good title, Mortal Kombat.
Yeah,
that's a good name.
That's a great name.
Fighting game with fatalities, gory, realistic. The title has a visceral nature to it, like Mortal Kombat. Like, oh, okay, we're real. This is serious, and it is. It's real life people, real life graphics ish, for the time, and blood, and Mortal Kombat. That's a good title. Anyway,
another good title. Yeah, speaking because I've talked a lot about things that should be avoided, but another good thing I think is titles where the title of the game is the main character or has the main character's name in it, because I think a lot more thought goes into characters than like character names than title names in games. And I don't, you're not going to see a very dark and gritty action game with a character whose name is Mario or Sonic the Hedgehog or Jack and Daxter. Like, those names are going to automatically give you some sense as to like who this character is and what he's doing. So a character name that is also the title of the game, automatically you fill in the blanks and your mind goes, oh, this is the adventures of Jack and Daxter, and Jack and Daxter are cool, fun, hip sounding guys. And then when you Google it after your friend talked about it and you see the image of, oh, they're these cute little cartoony characters, I think that works. And so on my good list is actually Super Mario Bros. Like Super Mario Brothers. That's a great title because you immediately get the super part of it is, oh, this is fun and kind of probably think cartoony, goofy. Mario, Italian, immediately brings to mind an Italian plumber, although that might be conditioning. And then Brothers, like, oh, these are the adventures of the Super Mario Brothers. That sounds like something that Mario actually is,
Yeah, a lot of self-title or character title games are platformers. I think like Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, like you said, Jack and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank. Like, if there's just character names in the title, you can almost assume it's a platformer or a mascot platformer. That's what they're kind of. The system is known for these mascots, and all the mascot platformers, I can't say all because there's probably exceptions to the rule, but seem to be self-titled or, character titled.
Cool.
Interesting. Good thought. Okay. There's other nitty gritties. Looking at the good methodology for titling video games. There's a practical nature, such as things you don't want to take a name it's already taken.
Yep.
Like that copyright infringement. Finding something, considering the practicalities like search engine optimization and what URL domain names you can get. And that's just like marketing and PR speak stuff. You don't want to have a racist title. You don't want to make sure you're thinking of all the people that are potential audiences. So localization, translations, you have to think about that kind of stuff. There's so many like really practical things that restrict you immediately outside of the creative side of it. Those are kind of the hard barriers.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then of course, icing on the cake, if it's a title that, rolls off the tongue, if it can do all those things and then also roll off the tongue and feel good to say, I mean, there are just words that go well together and if it can do all those things and then still have like a cultural reference or like a turn of phrase, an idiom of some kind, I think Devil May Cry, perfect title, because it both conveys, the feel of the game. You immediately know you're dealing with a game that's kind of supernatural, and but Devil May Cry is a phrase, a saying that existed long before the Devil May Cry games, and so I love the Devil May Cry title.
I was thinking of
and it feels good to
title.
say. That's why it's a phrase. Yeah. That's why it's something people say. Have said for centuries. Devil May Cry or Devil May Care is another one I've heard before. And so someone would say you have a Devil May Care attitude. And And so Devil May Cry just, it sounds good. It feels good to say. The words go well together.
An opposite view of that is how they named the latest Xbox console, Xbox Series X. It doesn't sound good.
No.
It doesn't roll off the tongue, and it makes absolutely no sense.
Right, and if you have to like add a bunch of punctuation to your title, then
oh my gosh,
that's
Kingdom
also
Hearts?
a problem. Like, I have nothing wrong with subtitles because they can be important in distinguishing entries in a franchise, and it can get boring to name something Zelda 1, 2, 3, 4. So giving a subtitle in lieu of a number is a good alternative. But there's a point where it's like, okay, this game has like 4 titles, and you have to have like a period and 3 commas and a colon in there just to break it out.
Yep, Kingdom Hearts RE Chain of Memories.
Yeah, okay.
Kingdom Hearts 58 over 2 days. Yeah,
I have Kingdom Hearts on my list. Okay, well, sounds like we want to jump into. We've talked about a lot about methodology, so let's jump into what we think are some good, bad, and ugly titles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's start with the good. These are some of mine that I listed. I think, as much as I said I don't typically love one-word titles, I think Halo is great. Because Halo immediately brings an image to mind that once you start talking about what it is, what kind of game it is, like, it immediately makes sense. It's a ring world. The Halo is a ring world, so it's both a descriptor of the game and also a reference to a proper noun in the game. So I just think Halo works great.
And there's the religious aspect of what the Covenant do, which you unveils later in the plot. They think of it as a religious thing. So Halo is angelic, Christian, heaven, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a really good title.
Yep. I think Call of Duty, as much as I dislike the franchise, again, it's both. The Call of Duty is a idiom, a phrase that has existed, immediately brings to mind war, and in fact, both that and like Medal of Honor, like, again, root you in this idea of this is a war game. Doesn't necessarily convey the multiplayer aspects of it, but it doesn't have to. It's just this is a World War II war game. I get it. Call of Duty, Medal of Honor, Battlefield even does the same thing.
I love the original The Legend of Zelda, like the title, because like it's a legend of a character name. Okay, that's cool if you're seeing it on the shelf, because back in the Nintendo days, you didn't have all the fancy art, you didn't have trailers online, you didn't have anything to see, magazine articles, etc. were it. And usually the game was on the shelf before you saw it in a book, so you'd see it on the shelf, Legend of Zelda. It's a gold box with the shield. I'm like, that sounds like an adventure game. It's mysterious. There's this legend. It's something of old. How am I, like, it's intriguing and it's descriptive. So you go home and put it in, and it's the most open world kind of adventure exploration game ever. It matches exactly. You got exactly what you expected just by seeing it.
My only gripe with Zelda's title is the placement of Zelda in it and the amount of confusion that choice to name the game after the side character, not even the playable character, I think has been a disservice to the game. Because wasn't Zelda 2's original name just Link, right? Like, the game was Link.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think at the end of the day, Zelda sounds better. The Legend of Zelda just, it's got that, and maybe again might be conditioning. I just might think because it's always been Zelda and I've always known it as Zelda that I'm just like, I can't think of it, the entire franchise being named Link. Or the reverse of that, just having the main character be Zelda. Like, I can't, because that's not the case. I can't imagine it. But at the same time, I could very easily have seen them go in either of those directions, and the franchise would be just as great as it is. I don't know. And less confusion.
Yeah.
But other than that, I agree. Zelda's a great title, but I put it in my bad category only because of the confusion of naming it after a side character or the secondary character.
Inspired by your notes when you put a title in there, I'm thinking of Resident Evil, which is the American localization of a game called Biohazard, which I love. I love the name Biohazard, and I wish they would have just kept that in American audiences. because it is. It's a survival horror movie about a virus that goes out. But Biohazard as a title by itself could be misleading because then you think hazmat suits, and that's not entirely off base. But you almost think radioactive,
right,
or like
Resident Evil makes me think suburbs. Like makes me think the entire game. It's almost more what Silent Hill is.
That's a good title too.
Silent Hill's great. That's a great title too. Now that I break it down.
Mm-hmm.
Other good titles. Anything really that has the word dead in it, I think works only because we automatically associate dead in a video game with zombies. So Dead Island, Dead Space,
Left 4 Dead.
Left 4 Dead, yeah. I'm immediately going to think zombies. So
mm-hmm.
it can get a little redundant, I think, but no one's going to mistake what you're talking about as if they're passingly familiar with video games. They're going to think, Dead Space? That sounds like zombies in space. That's exactly what it is.
Dead Rising? Yep, that's what it was. I had to Google it. I was like, what is that game with the photographer in the mall and there's zombies everywhere?
Oh, yeah.
It was an Xbox 360 almost launch title. Yeah, Dead Rising. That's another good title too.
Yeah.
But Red Dead Redemption, not zombie related at all.
Yeah, touche. There is a zombie mode in the first one, though.
There is. It was DLC. It was added later. Yeah.
What's the first one? Red Dead Revolver?
Yep.
At the same time, both those games do sound like cowboy, especially Red Dead Revolver. Immediately,
right, that's like cowboys, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ghost of Tsushima makes me think it should be supernatural, and it's not, as far as we know. It's just the ghost is the name of the samurai. I don't know how I feel about that one yet.
Mm-hmm.
Other bad, I want to lean into the bad now. A lot of these are the nonsensical titles that I'm talking about, whereas if you don't know anything about the game and just hear this title, they're all gonna blend together, and they did for me for forever. So BioShock, Far Cry, Borderlands, before I knew what those games were, they meant nothing to me, and none of them really reference anything in the games other than in Borderlands they sometimes call the collection of planets that Borderlands takes place, they sometimes call it the Borderlands. But they could have easily titled the game like Pandora, and it would have made so much more sense and worked so much better. You know what I mean? Because that's the actual planet that it takes place on. Far Cry, I still couldn't tell you why it's titled Far Cry. And BioShock, like, other than the plasmids that like alter your DNA,
right?
The game doesn't really have anything to do with biology or shock.
Yep. Infinite Undiscovery comes to mind. I don't know if you know what that game is, but it was a Japanese RPG. I have it for Xbox 360. It's like, what? What does Infinite Undiscovery mean?
Right.
And I don't even know. I never played it. I have it. Does the title Resonance of Fate? How do you feel about that?
I don't like it. I immediately don't like it.
Yeah, that's another JRPG title.
Unless, I'm sure it's referencing something, but like Anthem too. It's like, what? You could have called the game like Exosuit or whatever, and it would have been both a cool name and much more like specific as to what kind of game you're dealing with.
There was a game title came to me and then left thinking about Anthem. Oh, when I Google Anthem, I can't believe how many times the insurance company came up.
Yeah.
Like, exactly. I was trying to. So that goes back to my point earlier about social media, or search engine optimization and domain name purchasing, and are you naming yourself something that's similar to something else? Like they should have did a little work
before you slap it on there.
Yeah. Right. And they're like, oh yeah, that didn't work. There's some hilarious titles. One of them was an old Super Nintendo game that my brother and I used to rent called Spanky's Quest.
That was on a list of like I Googled just to see what other people thought and what I might have been missing, and that was always on there.
Yep.
The other one is
a platforming game with a monkey, but you wouldn't know that by the title because Spanky's Quest. Who knows?
And contrast that with Conker's Bad Fur Day. That immediately I'm like, okay, he's a squirrel, obviously, and he's having a terrible. It sounds like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You know what I mean? It's got that same kind of name scheme of like 90s sitcom movies. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like indie sitcom movies. That's what Conker's Bad Fur Day immediately makes me think of, and so that works. But Spanky's Quest just sounds like something 18 or older that you'd find, while browsing. Speaking of 18 or older, there is a game out there that I also saw on the list of most like terrible names. So it sounds like we're getting into the ugly now of game titles. There's one out there, and I think it came out for the DS, and the game is seriously titled Touch DIC.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Like what?
Family friendly. I won't say it out loud, but
yeah. What does that do? What's that word?
Game called Touch DIC, and I don't think that got through quality control at all.
Nope. Melty Blood Actress again. Current code. That's a name of a title.
Wow, that's ridiculous.
It's a text-heavy story-based game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who would have thought?
Yeah. So I wanted to, in the ugly list, though, not just talk about. I'm sure you could find completely obscure games that nobody knows about that have.
Yeah, I didn't know about that one. Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to talk about some of the titles I think are ugly that are more recognizable franchises. Ugly for various reasons. I think Horizon Zero Dawn is a terrible name.
Yeah, I don't like that name either.
Zero Dawn is a reference to a spoiler within the game that, again, the word Zero Dawn is nonsensical unless you know this very specific spoiler that you don't find out until 3/4 of the way through the game. And then Horizon is just like you said, it's just a generic word. So it's got that problem of like too much punctuation, nonsense, and it's like a reference to a spoiler within the game. Like, oh my gosh, come on, guys. Awful name. Great game. Terrible name. Gives nothing to give you a sense as to what kind of game is, other than Horizon would let me assume it's open world. That's about it.
Yep.
Nothing about the unique dinosaur robots that the game that sells the game, quite frankly.
Yeah, nothing about the combat system or
primary antagonist. Even if, again, that's one where they could have just named the game Aloy, or
that would have been a great title,
right? Because Aloy's name is already a reference to a slight twist on the word alloy, which would automatically make me think it's some kind of interesting sci-fi game. So
which it is
exactly. So Nier Automata is a nonsense name. I think the title Nier in the first place is just okay.
Yeah, whatever. What is that even?
Yeah, because it's not spelled N-E-A-R. It's spelled N-I-E-R.
Is that an actual word though, or is that a character name, or
like a made up word? And then automata, I'm like, okay, robots, I guess, but I don't know. It's not enough. It's not enough.
It is a sequel to a game called Nier, so maybe Nier, N-I-E-R. I don't know.
We'd have to look it up. It doesn't make the title was, but
and that's the point. We have to look it up.
Exactly.
That's why it's not.
That's why it's ugly.
Yeah. Yep.
I put Doom Eternal on my list only because there's nothing particularly wrong with the title other than when you take an M sound and follow it up with eternal, it sounds like a completely different word, and that word is maternal. And they still could have gotten the E sound and kept a word that means the same thing, and it would have sounded so much better if it was Doom Everlasting. Boom. Such a better title. I thought of that today. I was like, oh my gosh, they would have gotten the E in there. They would have gotten the idea of never-ending doom, and it would have sounded cooler, and it also wouldn't make me immediately think of my mother.
I never even thought that. That's funny. No,
it's a pet peeve. When they immediately announced the game, I was like, I know I've made the joke a million times on the podcast already, but I was like, oh, it's Doom Guy's mom, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and Eternal invokes the idea of eternity being spent maybe in hell. Mm-hmm. So it's, demons. So it makes sense why they chose that word. But everlasting, it is in the Bible a lot, but usually everlasting is joyful or heaven.
It could have been a cool flip, though, because there's a huge difference between everlasting joy and everlasting doom. But, I mean, even Doom Eternity works better. You know what I mean? And it's still the same basic word.
Well, maternity.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, never mind. That one doesn't work either. Doom maternity. Nope. Okay, Doom maternity leave. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, exactly. Never mind. You're right. Good call. We'll stick with Doom Everlasting then. That's what I'll call it.
Yep.
Borderlands, the pre-sequel. I already put Borderlands on my list of bad titles, and then the pre-sequel. I get what they were going for. It was supposed to be a joke, but it's caused way too much confusion. That is one where it's working against you because it's clearly meant to be played after Borderlands 2. In fact, it was originally conceived of being like a big DLC for Borderlands 2, and yet so many people are like, should I play it first? Where does this take place? It's before the second game, but after the first game. It's too confusing. Dumb name, dumb title. They could have gotten the entire point across if they call it Borderlands: The Story of Jack or Borderlands: Jack's Tale. You know what I mean? The Rise of Handsome Jack. They could have completely set the game because everybody knows who Handsome Jack is. You put the name of one of the best villains in video game history, you slap the name in the title, it's going to sell copies. It would have sold more, I think, if they'd put Jack's name on it.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay.
Nothing to add on that one.
Great. My last one is Kingdom, or no, sorry, I have two more. My last one, one of my second to last one is, you had already hit on this, but Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue. Is it the final chapter? Is it the prologue? Why 2.8? And you have to throw HD in there.
Yeah. It's an HD remake, bruh. Come on. It's obvious.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't even know what that is. And I studied the Kingdom Hearts story in depth before the third one, and I never retained that information.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that game is. Or when it is, or how it I have no clue.
So many problems. Everything you're just saying right now is such problematic.
It is.
Yep. And then my last one that I found is this one makes me laugh though for so many problems. Metal Gear Rising Revengeance is the subtitle. And Revengeance is a ridiculous title for so many reasons, but the main one being Revengeance is not only an amalgamation of words making a word that doesn't exist, but revenge and vengeance are already the same thing. So
it's redundant.
It's so redundant. I can't stand it. Like, they're not even being clever. They think they're being clever. It's so clear, but it's such an awful title. Revengeance. I'm just going to call it that all the time now. Like, I'm going to gain revengeance on you. Like, I'm not going to get revenge or vengeance. I'm getting revengeance. It's a terrible title. Metal Gear is already a pretty bad name. Again, reference to something in the game that, like, I don't know. I don't like Metal Gear as a title already, but adding a made-up word to it that's not even clever is even worse. Just makes the ugly list.
Yep.
Did you have any other ugly ones you wanted to add?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I actually thought of Gears of War as a really good title.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Like, Gears are the name of the soldiers in the game, which you don't know until you start the game itself. But also, like, the cogs of war, and you're a pawn, like, in a greater, scheme of things happening. And so you're one adventure in a small world of all the stuff. Anyway, I was like, wow, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Just kind of scanning I have to do research more to find a lot. And I didn't want to do that for this episode. I wanted to be very lighthearted and kind of like memory based. And, I've got my wall of games over here I can kind of glance at, but I'm not thinking of anything egregious or like super ugly that I can think of off the top of my head that you haven't covered already.
Cool. All right.
Yep.
Well then, we've kind of talked about this, but let's hit on some more of the deeper aspects of why is a good title important for a video game.
I did touch on that at the very beginning.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, kind of spoiled that a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'll say it again, first impressions. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing. In psychology, your first impression is what, like 90% of what you retain of something. I don't remember the exact figure, but it's something along the lines of you can't undo a bad first impression.
Yeah.
It's extremely difficult, the amount of work you have to do to undo that. And the same goes for titles of books, movies, and games. And that's just the fact of psychology and how we're wired as human beings to latch onto or gravitate away. That's not a good term. Gravitate away. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. So that's the importance of a title, at least initially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I hit on some of the things too along those lines. Again, it's important. At the end of the day, it is important for selling the game. It's important because it really creates the foundation for your community. You don't want people to sound ridiculous talking about your game. You want it to just be something that people are excited to be a part of. And so the title is, like you said, the first impression, that first step. You want it to be marketable. And yeah, it's kind of like every video game designer also wants every individual, every franchise starts with a single entry. So every entry, especially of a new IP or something, every game designer designs it with the hopes that it becomes a franchise, that it takes off. So titling it is very important because this is going to be the titles and the title scheme going forward. In fact, I also think the sequel is the second most important one, because then you're setting the pattern. Are you going to always call this game Half-Life 1, 2, and 3? Or are you going to do like Zelda did and this is Zelda Skyward Sword, this is Zelda Wind Waker, this is Zelda Breath of the Wild, you know what I mean? And adding that subtitle. So the pattern you create. And I think of the weird situation that Horizon Zero Dawn is in. Is it going to be called Horizon Zero Dawn 2? Is it going to be called Horizon New Subtitle? You know what I mean? Like, what do they go? Are they stuck with Horizon? Maybe they stick with the Zero Dawn part of it and they call it Zenith Zero Dawn or whatever. You know what I mean? They change the quote first part of the title, or I don't know. So they have an interesting conundrum ahead of them when it comes to naming.
So. And if you look at the top 10 games sold of every year, we did this in our sale or in our decade episodes. We do this, and if you look, it's Call of Duty.
Yeah,
it's Grand Theft Auto.
Oh yeah,
it's
great
sports
title.
games. Yeah, sports games, Madden, FIFA in a year. Like you can't get any clearer than that.
Yeah.
Like football year. Okay, that's what it is. It's exactly what it is. And I wonder if there's a correlation outside of the quality of the game and its content, if the name of it has anything to do. It's almost impossible to do any research on what would this game have sold if it had a different title. There's no way to objectively test that, like to control, experiment the title of a game in its sales.
Right. It's one of those things that's self-evident, kind of like it's one of those. It's kind of like personality and birth order. Like everyone knows colloquially that, like, oh yeah, the oldest child's the responsible one, the middle child is desperate for affection, and the youngest child's the wild child, right? Because everybody sees that in their families. But there's like scientists have found there's no way to like quantifiably prove that. So it's just one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, it makes so much sense that titles are an important selling factor, but there's no way to like research it, you know what I mean, and prove for sure. Because plenty of games with bad titles, as we say, or as we've pointed out, are like critical successes and sell well. And then plenty of titles or plenty of games that are terrible have great titles. You know what I mean? So it's the weird conundrum.
And then you can fall into the trap of confirmation bias.
Yeah.
And where you look at the kid that's oldest and you know he's going to be or she's going to be the most obedient, perfect child. So you kind of look at all of their behavior and, falsely identify everything they're doing as obedience in order.
And you downplay, or you ignore evidence to the contrary with other ones. Yeah.
And you can do the same thing with a game that's a title in a book or a movie. Like that game would have sold so much better if it had a better name.
Right.
Really? Yeah,
or reverse, where you're like,
it only sold well because it had a good title.
Or the reverse is another way of reversing that is being like, this game was so good, so its title must automatically be great, right? Like I'm sure there were people who balked at the fact when I threw Legend of Zelda in the bad category. They're like, no, Zelda's such a good game, so therefore its title must be great, right?
Right.
Like, no, not necessarily. So I've been picking on Horizon a lot, but again, it's like there are people who are like, it's such a great title, it works, blah, blah, blah. And I disagree because I'm like, the game is wonderful and amazing, and I can't wait to play the second one. Doesn't mean its title is good. But a thing I thought about when you were talking about the sports games, the best-selling games, a thought just came to mind, and it fits with this question as to why a title is important. A title is going to, in a lot of ways, like signal. You're trying to signal the people who are most likely to be your fans. And what came to mind is Madden, the sports game. The football game specifically. I know it's a football game because I am familiar with Madden, but I couldn't tell you originally. I couldn't tell you who Madden was and why Madden is a football game. But anybody involved in football who's involved in that culture immediately knows what it is. Same with FIFA. Like they're just, it's a part of that subculture. So titling the game Madden or FIFA is signaling the people who you want to be interested in your game. Call of Duty is signaling the like the people who are just big war or gun fans who would be likely to play the game. So I do think that that's why titles can be important. It's because they're immediately ways of kind of like triggering interest, specifically in the people you want to trigger interest.
So it gives it its identity.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to identify with these folks with this title immediately, just by the name.
For sure.
Yep.
Cool. Anything else to add?
Yeah, I liked what you were talking about, how the conversation around the game is something we talk about with the desire to like pre-order a game or play it day one. Some people say, I want to be a part of the conversation of the game. And that's why they do it. And they want to be relevant. They want to be posting about it online with their friends. It's more than just the schoolyard discussion now. And so you have hashtags, you got you got to spell it right. Everyone copy paste, and then you have to say it. So it needs to be, I just wanted to highlight that aspect of today's modern culture when it comes to talking about things, especially nouns, proper nouns, what I'm trying to say, proper nouns. Yeah. Having it spell right, sound right, look right, be easy to remember. Like, you don't want to have to, jump through a bunch of mental hoops to remember a game title when you're talking about it with your friends.
Yeah.
And
or worse, say the wrong game title when talking about it to your friends.
Yeah.
Have you ever played this game before? No, I haven't. And then you start describing it and they're like, it sounds like you're describing something else. Oh crap, sorry, wrong game. So you have played it. Yeah, you don't want that confusion.
Nope.
Yeah. Well, cool.
That's it.
What do you listeners, podcasters, pod smashers think about titles? What are some of your favorites? What are some titles that you hate? Do you think we're completely off base with some of our titles that we've said are good or bad? And what do you think the perfect video game title is? We want to hear from you. We want you to tell us what you think. That's your homework. Communicate to us. What do you think the best game titles are?
And you can let us know, firstly and most immediately, at Discord. And that link is on every one of our show notes on Facebook, and it's on Google Play and iTunes. You can find our show notes and our show itself at 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing website with links to Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, etc. Our RSS feed is there for any third-party consumption. If we are not on a platform that you want us to be, let us know. We'll put ourselves there. Look out for us on Wednesdays. You can join our live chat on twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash as we stream. We're going to be streaming Doom Eternal this Wednesday, but it doesn't really matter because that will have already happened when you're here listening to this. So who knows what we'll be streaming this Wednesday, but we're also on social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a subreddit. You can contact us any way you want. You can email us. Everything, we are at 80bitpodsmash, and our email address is 80bitpodsmash@gmail.com.
Awesome. We have finally done our homework and put together an upcoming episode list so that we know what we're doing next week. And so next week, we will have a timely discussion about backwards compatibility and what it is, what it means, what its history has been, what consoles have had it with other consoles, and what consoles do not have it, why it's such an important part of the conversation with consoles right now. So that's what we'll be talking about, backwards compatibility, April 13th. So we'll see you next week.
All right, see you next week.